Fantastic. Recording has started. So I'm just going to let us warm up here. It's 2 o'clock. We'll start in just a minute. When we just start the webinar, I know it always takes a little while for everybody to log on and get going. But I want to start off by welcoming everybody. Thank you all for joining us for this really fun event that we've been planning for a little while. Trends are a great thing to talk about. And I like talking about them in the beginning of the year because that's a lot of times when people are planning and figuring out what they want to be doing, what they should be doing next year. And one of the things I most like talking about when it comes to trends is what's worth paying attention to. Trends come in, they come out, and it's so easy to get spun up and overly focused on the new things that are coming that may or may not ever come to pass. So today we have a really great session with some of my favorite people. I decided that a great way to talk about trends is, instead of having us go out and pull everything together, let's bring in experts in different disciplines that we all have to navigate when it comes to marketing, and have people that live this stuff every day tell you a little bit about what's happening in their world. So today we have with us some fantastic people. So we have James. So I was crazy and I brought on two people named James. So I have James Copes, who's going to wave down though from Tulsa Productions. James is runs a video company that's fantastic, that does work primarily with nonprofit organizations. So he really understands video as it applies to our world and the kind of stories that we need to tell. I have the infamous Julia Campbell on, who I am thrilled to have. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with Julia and the fabulous work that
Infamous. I love that.
yeah, infamous Julia, who does just fantastic work in both social media, but also in helping all of us out here working in the nonprofit community understand social media. And that's why she's such a perfect person to come on and talk about things today. And then I have James Hoff from Boomtown Internet Group coming on to talk about sort of the state of things web and web design, and where the challenges and changes are happening in that world. And then from our team, I have our art director, Megan Riley, who many of you may know from previous trainings from Nonprofit Toolkit that Megan has led, or there may be some of you on here that have actually had the pleasure of working with Megan on our team. So this is our fantastic crew that we have today. So we're going to be talking about video, social media, web design, and the broadness of graphic design today. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down and let each of our experts talk for 10 minutes about three things. So everyone's bringing three trends today. So there'll be two general trends from the organization. And I asked everybody to speak to at least one trend aspect where AI is beginning to impact the work in their sector, in their field, in their specialty. Because I think that's something that's bubbling up, and it's really great for us to begin talking about where is it now, where might it be going, and how to begin to embrace those ideas, learn about them without getting hysterical, where's that right level that we should all be paying attention to things right now. So we're going to go around the virtual room here, and each of our speakers is going to be presenting for 10 minutes on their trend. And then we're going to wrap up that, and we will do some Q&A. So, everyone that is here now, you have the chat available to you. There are lots and lots of people that are on here today, so please utilize the chat. When our speakers aren't speaking, they're here in the room. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have things that you want to talk about, we may be able to get to you during the initial part and answer your questions in chat. There's lots and lots of people on here. You're all seeing trends yourself. So if somebody puts a question in that you have had some experiences where you've tried something that you've had some success, or maybe even you've had some challenge with, put it into the chat. I'm a firm believer that we're here to facilitate a conversation. We are not the only experts in the room. Sometimes hearing from somebody else that sits in the same chair that you sit in is going to give you the best answer. So please feel free to answer people's questions, to put your own ideas in, even if what you're seeing completely contradicts what we may be saying. That's okay. We're all here to put all of our knowledge into the pot and learn better together. If you have a big question or a question you really want us to try and make sure that we can get to, we're going to save some time at the end for a Q&A. So please put those questions into the Q&A area. With any luck, we will get you talking. Say hello. Where are you from? Hopefully the chat can, I'm not seeing anybody posting anything. So just to do a little quick test, can some of you that are out there just say hello in the chat, because it's empty right now. And that always makes me worry that some technology thing is, perfect. Okay, thank you. Now at least I know that it's working. Fantastic. Great. I know we're not here by ourselves. Wonderful. So we've got people here from all over the country, and we're going to kick off this conversation starting with video. So James, why don't you take it away and start off with your 10-minute tips on trends on what's happening with video.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Beth. And I'll try to keep this to under 10 minutes. Just to give you a real quick rundown, I'm going to talk a little bit about how short form video content has really taken over recently and how it's probably going to continue to do so. And then kind of dovetailing with that, how you can maximize the amount of content you're making at one time, whether you're working with a professional video production company like us or just doing it yourself, because we recognize that not everybody is going to hire professionals every single time they make video content, whatever it's for. And then finally, a couple things that are happening with artificial intelligence in our space that are kind of changing the way we work and the way that you use video online. So first thing I would talk about is short form content. So I don't know, social media has now been out for long enough that we can talk about stuff the way it used to be, which, for example, Vine was the first short form video content platform out there. And I don't know if people remember that, but it was a 6-second video. It was a square aspect ratio. So, you know, instead of your TV, which is like 16:9 aspect ratio, this was a square. And it was very popular. It was, you know, groundbreaking at the time, and then they stopped doing it for various reasons. TikTok has come to the fore as being one of the, you know, the most popular ways to use short form video content. And I'm not going to go too into the weeds about the different run times you can use, because there's, first of all, they're always changing. Second of all, Julie is the real expert in all of that stuff, so I don't want to get over my skis. But basically, it's just another platform that allows you to do these kind of short form videos. YouTube has recently been probably one of the most recent ones to add a short form segment to their platform. And that, kind of like TikTok and kind of like Instagram stories, is also using a different aspect ratio. If anyone doesn't know what I mean by aspect ratio, it's just the shape of the picture, you know. So right now your computer screen is usually something like a widescreen 16:9 or something like that. Your phone, when you hold it in your hand, is that vertical kind of aspect ratio, depending on the screen size. And so a lot of those new short form videos are using vertical video. And something that's changed a lot recently is that people are making content specifically for that format rather than doing it as an afterthought. So we're seeing professional cameras now that have a setting just to shoot vertical video on them, rather than that widescreen 16:9. So what we're also seeing as a trend at the same time is people kind of forgetting to make the most of that and posting videos in the wrong aspect ratio and getting things chopped off. So that's something, if you're using these platforms, you really want to avoid. If you're posting on Instagram, depending on where you're posting in Instagram, some things will go as a reel, some will go as a story. That's going to change the shape that the video should be. And we see, unfortunately, a lot of our clients go ahead and post things, and they end up ruining their content because they're not posting it to in the right way with the right aspect ratio original file. So that's something you need to pay attention to as you're getting into these platforms. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is how you can maximize the content that you're doing, because if you have all these new platforms and you need these short form videos, how do you have time to do that? And something that we've been talking about for over a decade now that seems to really be catching on finally is to stop viewing your video production efforts by the project. So rather than thinking of, well, we need to do a story for our gala, and we're going to be hyper focused on that, and we're going to get that video out, and that's going to be that. That's fine. That's how people have done things for a while. But it doesn't really make sense, because the most expensive part of production, whether you're working with a crew of professionals or you're doing it yourself, which is just a resource intensive thing on your end, is the shooting. The actual time when you have to get people together and put them in front of a camera and shoot B-roll and do all those kind of things. So you can make the most of your efforts by actually planning. Well, we want to have 6 or 7 different videos from this content. We're going to shoot for 2 or 3 days, and when we're done with it, we're going to have 6 months worth of videos done. It just takes a little bit of forethought to approach things that way. There's no reason that you have to make one video project at a time, and you shouldn't be doing things that way, because especially if you're working with a professional company, it's really not cost effective. In the nonprofit world, everybody's, of course, very budget sensitive. So we get a lot of pushback there, because there's, people have deadlines for their gala or whatever it is that they're working on, and they want to get that project finished. But and if you give yourself a little more time and put that extra effort in, you can have content, ready for months at a time to roll out. So I really encourage you to think about how you can maximize every time you plan out content, how you can maximize getting the most, we call it deliverables, but out of it. The 2 AI topics I'd like to talk about are briefly are, one is just increasing the equity that people have in accessing your content by adding captioning to everything. Captioning can be done automatically on most platforms, and you should always have that turned on. You can edit it for accuracy, but there's no reason that everything you put out shouldn't either have closed captioning, which can be done with AI, or open captioning, depending on the platform. And the other thing is the AI editing tools that are available. We don't use a lot of the ones that are like the prosumer type tools, but there's a lot of things for fixing audio and fixing video quality that are available that use artificial intelligence. So I think that's all I've got for today. If anyone has any questions, I'll put my email in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. That is fantastic. And we did have a quick question pop in that you can answer in the chat. Somebody asked if you can do vertical video on the phone. So we are going to jump over. Thank you very much. And Julia is going to go next and talk about social media and the constant change and how can you even talk about trends in that? Like every hour something changes. So I don't know how you do your job. So take it away.
I have a question for James, just from Amanda. Programs you recommend for AI generated captions. I wish I could answer that. I use whatever Zoom has and whatever PowerPoint has, but I don't know. Do you have any?
So there's a mobile one, and I might have to send it to you afterwards if Amanda wants to send me an email, but there's a mobile specific one that I use for mobile video. And then online, there's a couple different services that offer both AI captioning for closed caption files, what you call a subrip file, an SRT. One of them, I'll put it in the chat, is rev.com. Another one is GoToTranscript. There's tons of them, but the name of the app, if you just send me an email afterwards, I'll send you a link to download. It's a free app and it works pretty well.
I love that. I remember when we had to auto caption Instagram videos. Do you remember that? Instagram videos and Instagram Reels. And then thankfully they came out with captions, my God. So I have slides because I wanted to make some slides. It helps me focus. Also, you can get the slides afterwards if you want. You can email me or email Beth.
We'll send them out with the replay.
Yes, they'll be sent out with the replay. So I just wanted to focus my talk on 3 things that I'm seeing, but also ways maybe to make it actionable, because just like Beth said, it is very difficult to talk about social media marketing trends because things are changing so quickly. But I guess the only constant is change. Oh, wait, oh no, this is not the right slide deck. Sorry. This is not the right slide deck. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh my gosh, I pulled up the wrong slide
That's
deck.
okay.
Do
The
you have
presenter
like
slide, right?
12,000 tabs open? Can anyone else
I feel your pain.
empathize with
Totally.
that? Okay, I'm gonna pull it up right now. Hold on one
Well,
second.
I think that that's very on brand for a social media marketer to have 1,000 tabs open.
Oh my God. And I am, yeah, it's, I'm trying. My whole mantra in 2024 is less is more. So this is the right slide deck. Sorry. I have
Got it.
6 PowerPoint slide decks and God only knows how many tabs.
And I need
I'm
that
sure
t-shirt.
everyone can sympathize with me. I can't. I have a webinar. Someone actually made me a t-shirt. My friend Caitlin made me a t-shirt that said I can't. I have a webinar. So we don't need to learn too much about me, but I'm a mom of 2, so that's something I love to do. I've also created an academy for social media. I created a summit. I am a podcast host. I absolutely love my podcast. I have written 2 books, one on storytelling and one on social media. But the most important thing to know is that I come from the sector. So I'm a former development and marketing director. I've worked at nonprofits for years. I was a fundraiser for many years, a marketer for many years before going off on my own. Fun fact, my favorite show, I was really debating, but I think it's RuPaul's Drag Race, and my favorite candy is Swedish Fish. Someone asked me this at another webinar, so I thought I would put it in my slide deck. So the big question, is social media still relevant for nonprofits? Well, I think yes. I mean, 94% of NGOs worldwide agree that it is. A lot of website traffic still comes from social media. And more importantly, social media users say that they've used social media sites to show support for a cause. And that's kind of the more important thing for me. But the problem is that over 70% of social media marketers, this is in general, feel like there's too much to do. It's hard to keep up with platform changes. So this comes from the Hootsuite Social Trends in 2024 nonprofit report. Just Google that. It's a really fantastic report, and I pull a lot of my data and statistics from that. So what are the 3 trends in social media for nonprofits? So number 1 that I'm seeing, and it's not like a sexy, shiny tool, but it's strategic platform focus. So with so many platforms out there, it's more important than ever that we be very intentional and we be selective. So what does this mean, right? It means like making sure that your social teams are really clear on your objectives for your organizations. Are you trying to increase donations? Are you trying to diversify your donor base? Are you trying to grow community and connection? Like, what are you trying to do? And then conducting these return on investment audits to evaluate the effectiveness of your content and your platforms. So return on investment audits, I mean, I could do a 7-hour webinar on that, but it really is just looking at it, because a lot of us don't even really look at what we're doing. We don't see if this platform is actually working for us and our strategic objectives. And then breaking up with platforms. I had a very hard and ugly and sad breakup with Twitter last year. It was last year, might have been 2022. It was whenever Elon Musk bought it, but it was sad and hard and ugly, and I hated it. And I have 18,000 followers on Twitter, and it was sad. It was just awful for me, but I had to make that decision for myself. So are you going to break up with platforms because you're not getting return on investment? Are you going to break up with platforms because they're not aligned with your ethics and values? We have to make these decisions constantly. It's very fluid, and you should probably be evaluating where you are at least every 6 months, if not every quarter. And then repurposing content strategically. So if you don't have video or you hate video, you're not going to be on TikTok, right? So it just we have to think about what our strengths are, what our bandwidth is, and then we can kind of figure out where we are. And we really want to think about where our audience is. Of course, the number 1 metric, where is your audience? Who are you trying to serve? What are you trying to do? Who are you trying to engage? So if we don't think about those kinds of things, then we're not really going to have aligned content and we're not really going to be able to achieve our results. So everyone always says, where should I be? Where should I be? And to me, I can't answer that question without asking you 50 more questions, but nonprofits tend to experience higher engagement rates on LinkedIn and Facebook. I don't know. You got to read the report. You have to look at where your audience is, what your objectives are, and align them strategically. The second trend, now we know the entertainment rules, right? So people use social media to keep up with friends and family. People use it to find entertaining content. So before you say, I don't have entertaining content, what does entertaining mean? Entertainment can mean a lot of different things. And I don't want to scare you off by thinking like you need to be funny and lighthearted and doing dances. It can mean learning something new, like feeling hopeful, feeling a connection. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but Candid, formerly known as GuideStar, they did an experiment. Now, they're a research-driven organization. They have no clients. They do not directly serve clients. They don't serve animals, they don't serve kids, they don't serve anybody. So they don't have those kind of stories to share. It doesn't provide direct services. They still created 22 social media videos under 90 seconds over a 3-month period. You can see them on their Instagram. You can see them on their TikTok. They created educational videos that were still entertaining, answering questions. Now, my AI focus for my AI trend, the way you can use AI trends to augment and amplify your social media, ChatGPT. ChatGPT happens to be the one that I like. ChatGPT is generative AI. A lot of you might have heard of it. But how I like to use it, it's chat.openai.com, I believe it's just Google ChatGPT. It's completely free. I have the free version. I use it to generate ideas. So I always say please to my generative AI tools, but I said, please generate 10 ideas for entertaining social media posts. I don't know if you can see this. You can. Related to this nonprofit's mission and vision. And then I typed in Candid. I just cut and paste Candid's mission and vision. And then it gave me 10 ideas for entertaining social media posts. Nonprofit spotlight, interactive quiz, community stories, behind the scenes, throwback Thursday, Funder Friday. I mean, truly amazing. So using these generative AI tools, just asking questions, doing research, because thinking, what am I going to post on Facebook today can be so completely intimidating. So you're going to have this, you're going to have the link to that, but you can just create all these different prompts for whatever, you might be thinking about. There's tons of ways and interesting ways to use it, but that was something that I came up with. So that is the way that I like to use ChatGPT, generate ideas and brainstorm. Also, you could use ChatGPT actually for number 3 as well. You could say, based on our mission and vision, based on the 5 social media platforms that we use, generate 3 social media metrics that we should be measuring. Think of AI, the way that I think of it, as the intern that you don't have, as the assistant you don't have. I had ChatGPT make a whole meal plan for me this week. It was amazing. I just think of it as the intern and the assistant that I don't have. So the number 3 trend that I have seen is we are no longer going to be spinning our wheels, and we're no longer hopefully going to just be measuring engagement. So 80% of nonprofits prioritize engagement as their primary metric. That's what Hootsuite found in their trends report. But engagement is not always a reliable metric. Neither is reach, neither is impressions. Nothing on this graphic, okay? This is what we measure, and it's not wrong to measure that. If engagement is your number 1 objective, then sure. But maybe you should look beyond the average, whatever metrics that we're measuring. So I want to emphasize the importance of outcomes beyond engagement. You want to align the metrics with your organizational goals. And we also have to have expectations, like realistic expectations around social media marketing as well. We can't say we're going to post once and then raise $1 million. Maybe not necessarily will happen. We have to look at what is reasonable, and also what are some of the things, the benchmarks that we can lean on from before. The key here is not to measure data for data's sake. It's to analyze data and then iterate, identify, and adapt your social media strategy based on these insights. So not just look at the data and say, oh, that's great. Really look at the data over 6 months and say, we posted an Instagram reel every day and we got lots of engagement. You have to not just put the data sort of in a box. Okay, trends come and go. Trends come and go. This is a webinar about trends. And I think analyzing trends, understanding them, and knowing how we fit in and knowing the best ways to leverage them are very important. You're never going to be able to jump on every single trend, but just know that the only change is constant, or the only constant is change, and change is always going to be happening. Change is always happening. These platforms are constantly changing and shifting. And it's really our job as social media marketers not to pay attention to all of the changes, but to stay focused on what can get us the best outcomes and the best results. So that was my TED Talk. I feel like I had a TED Talk in 10 minutes.
You
Feel
did
free to
it.
connect with me on LinkedIn. Listen to my podcast, check out my academy, all the things. And I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Julia. That was fantastic. And with that, we are going to shift, getting deeper, video, social media. Now we're going to talk about web. Because I always have to remind people, we still have other forms of marketing that we do. It's so easy, people get so focused on social, and it's very important, but we need to make sure that we're paying attention to all the different platforms and all the different ways we can interact with people to evaluate where and what we need to be doing. So James, what's happening in web design?
Well, there's a lot happening. Hi, I'm James number 2 here. I'm the nerd of the group. I'm in programming from my high school days in the mid 90s. So I saw the internet grow from its beginning, and I started working on and programming websites from the very beginning. So I've seen a lot of trends come and go, and it's fun also to see trends that are perennial. Trends that are just continue to stay and evolve and really are not new. I'm going to talk about one of those trends later. The first one I'm going to talk about, however, I'm going to hit the robot elephant in the room, AI. I'm going to hit that first. So one way that you are probably seeing AI in your day-to-day life is in your social media feeds. Julia talked a bit about social media, and you might have noticed that they have changed in the past year or so, maybe a curious increase in the suggestions and the personalized content that you're seeing. This is driven by machine learning. They're learning about you. Big Brother is learning more about you, who you are, what you're into. So it's driven by your behavior. So that's one way that you are seeing AI at work, maybe in your daily feed a little bit. That's very clear when you see it. I'm scrolling my feed and I'm like, what the heck is this? I didn't ask for this. It's suggested content. It's very noticeable. Something that may not be as noticeable, but it's going to be super prevalent now, is AI generated content and images. Now, this has directly impacted our business. We also write social media posts and create images that we blast out on social media for our clients. And by and large, we're using AI to generate these images. Hey, I need a guy in a hard hat kneeling down in front of a brick wall, pointing at the wall, and I needed to have a banner that says, what are mortar joints, for our construction client. Human beings used to have to create this for us, and now they don't. It's scary powerful. If you're familiar with Grammarly, We use Grammarly here at this business, and man, that is scary powerful. If I want to say something as a boss and it's just not coming out correctly, I get my gibber in at least one sentence, run it through Grammarly. Man, that's really what I was trying to say. That's the power of AI. And what's happening now is that we've got entire websites with AI generated content. This on our side of the business, half of my business is what I do in the nerd basement programming, and the other half is marketing and SEO. The SEO team has been hesitant about AI content because we don't know, is Google going to like this? Is Google going to penalize you if you start using AI generated content? How can you even tell what is AI generated content? It seems to be so far that there are no penalties yet, may never be. No penalties. What Google seems to care about is just quality content. So we are at times encouraging our clients to, if you don't feel like writing your About Us page, just write a tiny little bit and ask ChatGPT to write the rest. It's remarkable. We're seeing you're going to need a human proofreader, but it's pretty powerful. The last place where you're going to see AI increasingly on the web is in chatbots. Are you really talking to a human being when you go to support? Ask yourself that now. You may not be. It's just, there's an increasing amount of data out there that's enabling AI to answer common questions without the need to have a human involved. That's a bit scary. We're not talking Terminator 2 AI take over the world stuff here. It's just an incredible tool that's put to use very well on the web. Next, I want to talk about the perennial trend that I've seen since the very beginning. I would say in the early 2000s, you started to see this trend, and it has not quit. It just looks a little bit different every year, and that's minimalism. Why doesn't it quit? Because less is more. In so many areas of life, less is more. So I've cleaned out my garage. I've got a minimalist garage now because I got rid of all my junk. What the heck is a minimalist website? So I'm going to show you what a minimalist website is by showing you some contrast. Here is what they are not. We all know what Amazon's homepage looks like. Can we all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is not minimalist. You've probably seen this a million times. A lot going on here, too much going on here. We've got another website here. I don't even know who this is, but it's a great example of a maximalist website. What on earth? Quite a bit going on. And by the way, this has a goal. There's a place for this. There's a place for crazy typography and flashy graphics and such. Nowadays on the web, this type of thing, when it comes to Google's perspective, is going to be frowned upon. You're not going to be able to easily make this website rank. Why? Because it's just not going to be as fast. Speed is king. Google owns the world, and they care about your website being very, very fast. So here is what a minimalist would look like by contrast. It's like a breath of fresh air, frankly. I don't know who this shoe company is, but I found them, and this is a great example of minimalism. I'm always going to be a fan of the minimalist website. Another one here, because when you have less stuff, literally fewer elements on the homepage, it is just going to load faster. I don't care what platform you're on. We are a WordPress company. We build everything in WordPress, which is pretty quick by nature. When you pare it down, you're going to begin to look more favorable to Google simply because it loads faster. Why does this matter? Because people just don't have the patience, or as we call it, the sticking time. No one is sticking around for your 10-second crazy graphics to load anymore. It's just not happening. And Not to mention that if I go to back up here to the top, Google doesn't even see this website. They are not looking at this site as you and I are looking at it now with our eyes. They are looking at it like this. They only look at the mobile version now.
Really?
So if it takes 10 seconds for this to load on my mobile phone, peace out. It's not happening. People are going to bounce off the site. So Google cares more about speed now more than ever. So my last trend I want to talk about, it's just a fun one. This is just for fun. It's just something I find super interesting. And that's called bento grids. You might know this word bento. It's a Japanese term for like a single portion boxed meal. Here's a bento box. Maybe you've seen these before. So it's single portion. They're like really fun to eat out of, not just for kids. Like here's the kids version. That's cool. My kids all ate out of these, and I actually own this one right here. I have this in my house. It's super fun to eat out of. But this idea has made its way into the web. It's not brand new, but it's a trend that is continuing to grow in popularity. And the web version of this is called a bento grid that looks like this. So it's just a more organized and clear way to consume information. So this is kind of a Mac, Apple-esque way to present information in a bento grid. Here's another. I could take this same information and I could just program it top down. Memberships, paragraph, manager, paragraph. But breaking it up into these boxes helps to make it more clear, easier to navigate. And it actually helps user expectation, because as this screen size changes, I can't do it with my browser here because this is an image. As my screen size changes, we all know what it looks like when you take a desktop site and you bring it down to mobile. Sometimes it gets drastically different. This doesn't get drastically different. The boxes just stack on top of each other. It's something that the user would expect. Here's our last bento. This one's a little retro. It's kind of involves another trend I'm not going to talk about, but that's gradients. Gradients were a big thing 10 years ago. They're coming back. Maybe it's because of other retro things coming back into fashion. Late 80s look and feel. Like this looks really retro wave, like straight out of 1987. So this is a combination of both. I thought bento grids was a cool thing to talk about. And that's all I've got.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I've got a couple of questions for you. You'll see a few in the chat popping in, but we're going to switch over to Megan and let her do her overview of trends in graphic design. And then we will circle back to, there's a whole bunch of questions coming into the Q&A. I just want to confirm that I see them, I have them, and we will get to them. Megan, take it away.
All right, so I am going to jump into graphic design trends, and one of them is actually one that James was just touching on, which is color. Color trends right now, especially coming into 2024, one of the big ones is super vibrant color palettes, like bright colors and really bright, obnoxious gradients. That seems to be a very big trend coming in. It was a trend that was happening in 2023, but looking forward, everyone's predicting that is going to be the trend in color for 2024. And so one of the types of gradient, James was talking about gradients, and one of the types of gradients that seems to be very popular is something called an abstract gradient. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what I am talking about here. And so abstract gradients, I'm sure you've seen these before. Apple specifically uses them a lot as default backgrounds on phones in the most recent phones that they've put out. It's often an abstract background, but these really bright colors are very trendy. Now, if you are looking at your brand colors and you're saying, my colors are very muted, I don't have that many options, I don't have that many bright colors, these abstract gradients are actually kind of nice because you can use, say your brand guidelines have one accent color that's bright, but the rest are kind of muted. pulling in that one bright accent color with some of your other brand colors actually gives it that feeling of being a lot brighter and busier than it actually may be. But if you're looking at your brand colors and you're like, I really can't hit on this super bright trend that's happening, but I really want to keep my designs looking current, keep my designs looking like they're on trend. There's another trend that kind of goes in the opposite direction for design, and that is these retro. I've seen it called several different things. So one version is the retro color palette. Another place was calling it a candy colored palette, and another place was the pastel palettes. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Pantone color of the year or have been paying attention, but this year's color it's called Peach Fuzz. And it is this pale peach color. It's actually the color that I'm showing down here in this bottom corner that was pulled from their website, as well as this one, just to show you kind of an example of what these color palettes are. So this is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but it's the other way that color's going. And color tends to always be going in two completely different directions at all times. And you can either hit one trend or the other, or you can try and figure out how you want to hit both. But I think this is a really great trend option if your colors are more limited. So if you have a smaller color palette, or if you have a color palette that has very few colors, or if you have a color palette that has very few bright colors in it, this is a good option for you, because you can say your organization is known for their blue and their green color, and they're pretty standard navy blue and a dark green. And so you're really not feeling like you can hit on this vibrant trend, and maybe you don't feel like you can hit on this trend. A way that you could kind of try to work within this trend would be to create some tints of your brand colors. So taking the other colors in your palette and making tints of them. And a tint is when you add white to a color. So you take that color and you make it a lighter version of that color. That would be a way to still stay within brand guidelines while also pushing it a little bit to stay on trend and feel a little bit more current. The next trend that I want to talk about, I don't have an example for you, but it is, actually I can stop sharing my screen. It is typography. And the biggest thing in typography that I am seeing right now is serif fonts are coming back in a big way. So for many years, sans serif, geometric sans serif fonts like Montserrat were really, really trendy. And they still are being used plenty in web design specifically. But a lot of people are starting to pull in interesting, in one place I saw it called quirky serif fonts. So they have like interesting extra little curls to the ends of the letters. And if you don't know what I'm referring to when I say a serif font, an example that most people would know is Times New Roman. So that's a classic serif font that I think everyone's probably, or Garamond. There's some classic fonts that people have used before, and Arial would be an example of a sans serif font. But serif fonts are coming back. If you do not have them in your brand guidelines, there are other ways that you can incorporate these trends. So maybe if your brand guidelines are a little bit flexible, you can maybe use them for like subheads or use them on specialty pieces. So I know some nonprofits have galas and special events, and that's where they're allowed to kind of be a little more flexible with their brand guidelines and maybe use a different look for these for the marketing materials. I would recommend pulling in a serif font when you're thinking about the look for that piece. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is AI. Everyone has touched on AI, and what I'm looking at with AI is that as a creative, I'm seeing it less as a competitor and more as a collaborator. So I'm trying to see different ways that it is helping improve my workflow and making me and other graphic designers more efficient. And so one of the examples is Adobe has rolled out in the Adobe Creative Suite, they've rolled out their different generative AI tools within their programs. And their generative AI tool that's within the Photoshop program has been extremely helpful in speeding up my work workflow, my process. So if I had to remove people from the background of an image before, that could take up to an hour to do. Say there's someone in the background of an image that I need to use for a cover of a magazine, and there's somebody standing in the background that's got a bright red sweatshirt on, and I really don't want them there because they're distracting from the focal point. Before, I would have to spend all this time trying to remove them, and if it wasn't successful, then I'd have to figure out a different way to remove them than the way I was trying originally, and it could be hours of work. Now, I can just highlight the person and type into the tool, remove this person from the background, and then it generates 4 different options for me to choose from. And typically one of those options will work. So it's going from hours worth of work to sometimes 30 seconds worth of work. And that's allowing me to have more time to be creative and think about the design work. And I'm spending less time really focusing on those little detail pieces. Another thing that I've been using it for that's been great is, we've all been there where we've had a photo that is horizontal and we really, really need it to be vertical to fit in the space that we need it to be. Using this tool, it also makes creating the image as a vertical image so much easier. You just type in, expand the background, and it will expand the background. It's amazing. So I am seeing it as an assistant to my job, but not as something that is completely taking my job. And I think it'll be very interesting to see where things go. Now, if you're using a tool like Canva, they've also rolled out a bunch of AI tools, and there's a bunch of things they have going on. Their background remover tool is fantastic. I've used that several times. That's amazing. A lot of the other AI tools they have are leaving a lot to be desired. I would give it a little bit more time for them to work out some of the kinks there, but it's getting there, and it's fascinating to see how it's changing what we do every day.
Fantastic. So thank you all. So I'm going to do some rapid fire like Q&A to see if we can get through as many of these as possible. So I want to start with something that didn't actually come in as a question, but there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of chat in the chat about accessibility. So James, can you remind me the name of the free plugin that we've been putting into websites to begin to address that?
Yeah, it's called Userway.
Userway, yeah.
Userway.org.
And so userway.org is a plugin that James has been installing into websites when we build them that, can address a lot of the, I would say, James, is this right? Is it accurate in saying baseline issues?
Yeah, I would say that it's the programmer's responsibility to really give you a nice baseline compatibility. That burden should be on me as the developer, but I can't caption your videos. There's certain things no one's going to be able to do except yourself. And if someone wants to come on the site and just change the font size and, wow, I'm colorblind, I need a completely different scheme, that's not on the programmer to do. That's on the plugin to do. And that's the magic of just layering a plugin on top of your compatibility as a base.
Exactly. And there's levels above that. We just did a site together this year that required, it was for a university, and it just to meet their requirements, we had to go well beyond that. But it's a place to start looking. I just wanted to say, like, anytime I can find a free resource that will get you some of the way, it's always worth looking into. So I have to say, I really appreciate everybody putting their suggestions and their tips and their tools that they're using. So another specific question for James: when you use the bento format on small screens, does it effectively stack everything from the top down?
Yes.
Like natively.
Yep. So if on your desktop, it's going left to right. It's just going to stack in that same order within reason on mobile. That's what makes it so nice. It's exactly what the user would expect.
And then a follow-up question to that is Gutenberg bento grid friendly?
It is. Gutenberg is a block editor. So as you create your blocks in Gutenberg, they're not going to have the nice, beautiful rounded corners or the colorful borders, but with a little CSS styling added, you've just created a bento box. All a bento box is that it's a bordered box with rounded corners. You're done.
Specifically. Fantastic. And this is, I mean, anybody might have an opinion on this, but Julia, someone's asking, are hashtags still relevant?
I mean, I don't know about on Twitter, because that platform is just changing constantly. I
Mhm.
know on LinkedIn, it can help surface your content. And definitely on Instagram for sure. It can help you get found and be seen in the Explore feed. But I see the trend being less of people searching for things and being expected to be fed stuff, like the TikTokification of social media. Like you don't go on TikTok and look for something. You just are like on your For You feed and it's feeding you stuff that you constantly like. You can use hashtags on TikTok though. So I think they're still relevant. It just depends on the platform.
And is there anything that you suggest that you use for tracking them?
That's a tough one because there's really not one tool to rule them all because all of the APIs are constantly changing. You're going to have to pay for something like
Yeah.
probably Sprout Social. I think Hootsuite does a pretty good job, but I think you can only maybe have 2 or 3 platforms before you get into the premium service. You could check out Buffer is another great one. So those are the 3 I would recommend.
Yeah, and we use Sprout Social and love
Mhm.
Sprout Social.
Yeah, Sprout Social is really
I find
great. It's like
Hootsuite
all
very
purpose.
confusing. Yeah, I get lost in Hootsuite. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have here? Other questions. A couple of them are popping in as answer, but I want to make sure that I'm going through them all. So we talked a little bit more about, okay, so another question on accessibility. Can you please talk more about how AI can be used for accessibility purposes? You mentioned captioning briefly, but how else can AI be utilized for accessibility? Is anyone else seeing or digging into any of that?
Ask that question to ChatGPT. I'm not kidding you. Say,
Yeah.
what are 10 ways I can make this website more accessible? I mean, that's personally how I would use AI, but
Yeah, that's very meta.
There's also there's a competitor of that plugin I gave you. Userway is free. They have a competitor that's paid that harnesses AI to do a much more comprehensive layering of accessibility compatibility on your website. I'm actually one of their partners. I don't push their product because it's paid, but it's just a completely different beast than Userway. Yes, AI can be harnessed to find areas of your site that your developer did not. That's the point.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Okay, and then Kate Myers Emery asked, there's a lot of debate right now over whether you should use trending audio or original video, particularly on TikTok. Trending can help expand reach, but has copyright issues that broader social media industry hasn't quite ironed out. And while the original is good, does it require more thoughts? Any thoughts on trending versus original?
I think you need to test it. That's what I would say. So, I would absolutely do an A/B test of it. There's not a blanket answer. Like some people rely 100% on original content. Some people rely on 100% on trending. I would do a combination and then just kind of see which one works better for you.
Fantastic. And on the scope of testing, somebody also posted in that while AI is a great start for accessibility purposes, people need to be manually checking it, especially for all tech
Absolutely.
purposes. So that
Yeah,
thanks for putting that in there. That's great.
if you've never seen how frustrating it is to be someone who can't hear what's on the screen, just put captions on and turn your sound off for a while and rely on them on your TV, and you'll see that there's so many mistakes even in professional captioning. So you really should, yeah, definitely double check, make sure everything's correct. The auto generated stuff is still just a starting point in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm actually watching a TV show right now that is in French, so I'm only watching the captions. But I've watched enough stuff that is in English, in like streaming stuff with English with captions. If you want to drive your children insane, turn on captions when you're watching something that's in the language that you speak. It's fabulous. But it is also fascinating to begin to see the difference between what people are actually saying and then what's captioned. I'm always amused when, somebody that's speaking in another language, especially like an Asian language, is going to speak for like a minute, and then you see like 2 words pop up in the caption, and you're like, no, that can't be what happened here.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, so that I think it's so interesting, and I felt like we have some tips to share with you, but I feel like I'm getting as much out of the issues, the things that you're seeing, and like the fact that accessibility is and captioning are things that are coming up a lot. Just proves the point that these are things we all need to be paying attention to. Okay, so another question we have in here. So somebody asked if Google only looking at the mobile versions of websites, which I think, James, you already answered. Is if you ask an AI in a customer service role, if they are an AI, do they legally have to answer that if they're AI or not a human?
No, I just talked to like 7 bots today that didn't tell me they were bots.
That didn't tell you they were bots. But it's funny. I mean,
But I knew they were. I just kind of knew.
Now, did you know just because of like how weird and awkward they were, or
Well,
the
no,
other
it's on
thing
a
that I'm seeing is that
website
they're
and it
not calling
says
themselves like they're
chat,
not
our
like
chat
Tiffany
assistant.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
now
I
it's
think
like,
it
yeah,
never
they're actually
disclosed like
identifying.
I am an AI generated.
Mhm.
That's a really great question though. I don't know if it's legal. I'm sure it's going to come. I think that's coming.
Mhm.
That chatbots will have to disclose that they are AI, but there are, there are so many things that we interact with on a daily basis that we don't know that are AI. Like I know people that have AI setups to reply to emails as like Barbara at iriscreative.com, that are, it's basically like Calendly or like a calendaring software, but it responds as a person.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think
Crazy.
we never know. But I believe that the regulation might be coming. I think it will be coming.
So, so we have a branding question. So I work for a disability justice nonprofit, and it's imperative that our branding is accessible. First of all, kudos to your organization for thinking that way. How do we have any chance on being on trend or innovative when we're ensuring that everyone has access to our content? So that's always, that's definitely, I would say it seems tricky, but like, there's like, I think a lot of what Megan was saying is there's ways that you can take your core and make minor adaptations. And even what James was saying about these like streamlined open sites, like, the designer in me, when I look at the simple plain websites that James was showing, that's fast and what Google wants, it's like, oh, it's like a knife to the heart. I'm like, it's so plain, there's nothing there. But trends always evolve and change. And I mean, I feel like the best way that you can make sure that you're staying on brand while staying on top of things is to keep yourself educated, keep yourself learning, see what's out there, look at lots of stuff. A lot of times people say things to us like, well, we're not really ready for a rebrand. We just need a refresh, and getting clarity. Well, what is your branding? What does your brand mean? Can you make micro adjustments to your brand along the way? Maybe you have a set of bright colors and you need to create, like, for example, we talk about creating expanded color palettes. So you have your primary color palette, maybe you need a secondary color palette, and some decisions around when those things can be used and how they can be used. The muted color trend may not work well for certain accessibility issues today, but like that's a trend of today. There's other trends of tomorrow. We talked about a few trends, but you could go with the clean trend, the clean, simple trend that James showed. I think a lot of this conversation about that there are lots of trends out there. The trends are always going to be rolling. And somewhere in there is some version of whether it's a trend or whether it's just an aspect of the currency, of being current, that keeps your brand moving so that you don't hit that point where you need a ginormous overhaul. One way to do it is to keep things going, and then you hit a point where you're thinking, okay, got to bring in a branding agency. We have to really make a big change. But for lots of our clients, we just make minor, almost invisible evolutions along the way to keep things growing and evolving and fresh.
Mhm.
Hopefully that's helpful.
And even if you're looking at using, say, that muted color palette, as Beth was saying, definitely can be difficult with accessibility, but if you're looking at that as like maybe just a light background color that if they see it or not, it doesn't matter, but then make sure you're using black on top of it or a really dark color on top of it for the type so that that's readable. So just seeing how you can address those trends. Maybe your palette has to follow certain rules in order to stay on, to stay accessible, but there's room for adding in a really bright accent color in some of like the lines or accent pieces in your designs. Like just seeing where you can maybe use some of the trends but still follow accessibility standards. There's always room for just slight adjustments.
Fantastic. So we are at time right now. So I just want to wrap up and, just thank all of our presenters and just go around the room to say any last comment, last thing you want to share, what's coming up in your world that people should know about. Julia, why don't you go?
Yeah, I know you might want to call on people because I think
I was going to say, I
we're
might
gonna
need to
see
do
all,
that so we don't
see
talk at
all
the same
different
time.
things. So I am launching my Social Media for Social Good Academy. It opens February 5th. You can go to socialgoodacademy.com or follow me on LinkedIn for more information, but I'm really excited about it.
Fantastic. And Julia's trainings are incredible. James Copes, do you have anything coming up or any place you want people to find you?
No, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and I thank you for having me today. You know that we believe really strongly in education and helping people out. Always here to answer questions. I've been doing this for over a decade. The company's been doing this for almost 3 decades now. So you don't have to come with a project in hand or anything like that. We're always happy to just hear ideas, talk about things, answer questions. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I put my email in the chat.
Awesome. James Hoff.
Thanks for having me, Beth. You can find me and my company at boomtownig.com. I wish I would have talked a little bit about accessibility. I thought everyone's going to be bored by accessibility. I shouldn't talk about that. It's so nerdy and no one's going to care, but no, it's like a super popular topic.
Maybe we'll have to do a whole separate session just on accessibility.
Yeah, it's a wonderful topic. It's really great. Thank you, Beth.
Awesome. And Megan.
Well, I work with Beth, so we have a lot of trainings. We have a lot of I think we're doing our next session we're hoping to do is on PR, so keep an eye out for that. Just keep an eye out for our emails. We've been sending a lot about the publication work we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of fun and interesting publication work where we're taking digital print publications and making them digital. And so we've been talking about that a lot. And yeah, so just keep an eye out.
Fantastic. Thank you all for being here today. This has been recorded. You will be getting the link to the recording will come out tomorrow. We will attach Julia's slides so you all have them. Thank you all so much for joining us. And please reach out to us. You can, I have a very unusual name. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Follow our newsletter Focal Point on LinkedIn and let us know if there's topics that we should be doing these sort of sessions about, experts that we should bring in. We're always looking to feel how we can all grow and learn more about nonprofit communications together. So thank you all. Thanks for all the love in the little things that are floating up there. I don't even know what they're called, but I love them. And I love it. Thank you all for joining us today and being so active in the chat and participating. We really appreciate it because it just makes a dynamic and more fun environment for all of us. And I guess the last thing that I would say is we're starting these little collaboratories, which are in-person sessions that I'm going to be going around to different areas and gathering groups of people together to discuss the frustrations that we're having around different challenges and seeing what we can all do together to solve them. So if you've got a cluster of nonprofit leaders in your city, in your area, and think that we should come out your way, send me an email and let me know so that we can begin to figure out where we should be coming, because as much as I love webinars and I'm on them all the time, I really miss some in-person stuff and I'm looking to coming out and meeting people where they are. So let us know. And thank you so much. And we will see you all in March for a conversation on storytelling and PR. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.